Welcome to my workbench. Today I want to talk to you about sand. Now, I live at the beach, so I know all about sand. And specifically, sand can do some pretty nasty things to an RC car. So I want to talk to you about a few tips and tricks to make sure if you go out in the dunes, you have a good time. Now, I'm going to start off with the more severe things, and then I'll finish this video with just some recommendations. You can take them or leave them as you choose. Now, for the demonstration here, I have a 1/12 scale Take-On, and it's about as small of a scale as I would recommend going out in the sand. Primarily because if you go to the beach or dunes, usually there's footprints, and even the 1/12 can barely handle footprints on the beach. I really only use this in my backyard, so when I go to the dunes, I'd recommend 1/10 scale or higher. Now, the first thing you want to do is look at your tires, and we need to seal the tires up. Now, RC tires come with breather holes designed to make the tire soft so air can get in and out and have a pneumatic effect. Now, inside of the rubber is foam, and what will happen is the sand will get in there and it'll get stuck in the foam around the entrance point, and it creates an imbalance in the tire to where at high RPMs it really starts to wobble, which then affects bearings and hub carriers and can cause some serious damage. All you need to do is either tape or glue your air holes. Now, I prefer rubber cement or foam tack. It's the stuff that comes with my RC airplanes. Now, some different rims have different amount of air holes. This one happens to have one here and one directly opposite. Just make sure that whatever you do to one side of the wheel, you do to the other side, because we're looking to keep the balance correct here. So if you put glue on one side, put glue on the other. Tape, tape. Now, that's the first major issue. The second major issue is your gears. Now, for this particular vehicle, make sure you see this here, I've removed the gear cover, but even with this gear cover in place, it was taking maybe 8 or 10 batteries before the spur gear was going completely bald. Now, in this particular model, the spur gear that comes standard is this sort of plastic nylon. So even little bits of sand getting in there would eventually just completely erode the gears. So a recommendation is to find metal gear upgrades. Now, for this particular model, Hot Racing makes a Losi Mini 8T, which is a direct fit for the Take-On. Good for me there. Whatever vehicle you have, go ahead and order metal gears. Now, go ahead and run your plastics when you get in the sand, and you can just swap them over later. Or go ahead and proactively put the metal in. You want to try to prevent sand from getting in there as much as possible, but with the metal gears, what little sand gets in there will just get chewed up and spat out, and it's not a problem. So those are the two biggest major issues, is sealing your wheels and making sure your transmission and your gearing can handle the sand and the abrasion. Now, if you're concerned about your shocks, you can put balloons or shock protectors on the outside. However, I've found if you have a good set of shocks and you build them correctly and make sure that you're not leaking any oil, all you have to do is just brush them off every battery and they stay fine. These I run regularly and they have no buildup of sand at all. If you compare that to a shock that was an RTR shock that I did not build, I didn't put any love and care into it, it leaked oil and now it's completely coated in sand, which is not preventing it from working, but you certainly feel a little bit of grit. So good shocks mean you're not going to have a problem with sand, but you might still want to cover them if you choose to. That's a recommendation, not a requirement. Now, another thing you might want to consider is your choice of tire when you're running in the sand. Now, sand paddles are really, really fun. It's awesome throwing up a rooster spray of sand, but you get an amazing amount of traction when you have these, so you need to be cautious about gearing down just a little bit, as well as potentially even loosening up your slipper clutch, because you will grab a ton of traction with these paddles, and it can just put a lot of strain on your drivetrain and your ESC and your motor. If you're not going to use sand paddles, I would say go ahead and either sacrifice an existing set of tires or potentially buy a set of regular tires that you're going to use only in like sand or silt. Seal them up, but when you look at the tread pattern, choose wisely for the environment you're going to be in. Now for this particular pattern, if I were in some gritty, like gravelly stuff and on grass, this works pretty well. But it's not a very deep tread pattern when you look at it on profile. And just a little bit of moist sand and that completely gets sealed up, and now you're running on slicks. So the chunkier you can get, the better. I think Badlands from Proline are a better choice than these dirt hogs. I think these would be great on like an outdoor racetrack, something like that, but just not enough lug. You could potentially cut some out if you chose to, but I'm not going to do that. Now the last thing that I recommend is go to Lowe's and grab a couple paintbrushes. A more artistic or smaller one to get down in your nooks and crannies, to get down inside of gears, and the larger one with some good bristles on there. Make sure you pay a little bit of money so that these things don't get all broken and messed up after just a couple of uses. Now every battery I run, I just go in and brush down all of the shocks and inside around the gears, around the main drive shafts, and just make sure that sand hasn't collected in there, especially if it's moist. If there's any moisture in the air or the sand is a little wet from rain from a few days ago, you're going to find that sand is amazing in its sticky properties to sticking to the plastics on these RCs. So you'll prevent a lot of issues and build up by just having a simple set of brushes with you. So hopefully this has been helpful. Again, if you're going to go out and sand, the two things you absolutely need to do are to seal your tires and make sure that you've got metal gears in your transmission and you've sealed it as best as you can. If you do those two things alone, you'll have a great time in the sand. And if you do choose to take out some sand paddles or something, just make sure and watch your drivetrain, gear it down a touch, and check your slipper clutch. I hope this has been helpful, and we'll see y'all out in the dunes.